Welcome to the Desert Sanctuary with Karl and Laura Forehand.
Often when we have doubts about religion or simply want to ask questions, it can feel like we are wandering out into the desert.
We would like to invite you to join our sanctuary, the Desert Sanctuary.
We've tried to pick guests that would resonate with and challenge us and our fellow seekers here in the desert.
We believe that a key to the journey is to keep asking good questions, and we believe that all stories are sacred.
Our hope is that you will find life and healing for your body and mind, and that you will be able to be who you are and be who you are.
And now, here is our show. Hi, welcome to the Desert Sanctuary podcast. I'm Laura Forehand, and I'm here with Karl Forehand, and it's just the two of us, and I'm super excited because this is our 300th episode.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
I don't know that I ever thought that we would do 300 episodes of the Desert Sanctuary, and maybe when we first started, it was really kind of just you, and then I kind of jumped on the bandwagon, and
I don't think we knew what we were doing at the beginning.
But man, it's just been a really good year.
Yeah,
leading up to the 300th episode.
It has indeed. It's like this year we taped 70 episodes.
Wow,
which is a lot because we thought we were doing good when we were doing one a week, but then we had so much stuff to talk about when we started talking about church harm and when the thing happened this fall that we really wanted to report on, and all of those things happened. There was just so much we wanted to talk about.
Well, didn't like 2 documentaries come out? I know Let Us Pray, right? But what was the other one?
So the other one is...
It was with Bill Gothard.
Yeah, it's Shiny Happy People.
There you go, Shiny Happy People, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that kind of opened up some more talking points for us, and we found some really exceptionally wonderful people to talk to and enlighten us about indoctrination into cults, basically.
Yeah.
So
towards the end of last year, I know we were talking to people about church harm, and we ended up interviewing people that were in that one documentary, Shiny Happy People.
Right.
We actually interviewed people that were on screen in that. And now Let Us Pray is out, and we're trying to get at least 1 or 2 of them to interview. So we've been recording our new intro. I'm excited about that for the podcast.
Turned out good, I think.
It went really well. Laura has an ear for when something's too high, too low, and sounds right. And she's also a professional radio voice person.
I don't know about that.
Compared to me, at least.
But, yeah, it was just funny. The first time we tried recording it, it was like, we just sounded like we were yelling, and this soft music was behind us. So it was funny. But, yeah, I'm glad we got something new out as we venture into the new year. So
we got a new microphone. It's like a $40 microphone, but it's better than the old $100 microphones. That's kind of the way technology goes, but excited about it. It works well for how we use it.
Yeah, so let's reflect back a little bit maybe on, some of this past year's best memories. What were they for you?
Yeah, I was trying to pull up the old episodes here, and I thought, it was really eye-opening to talk about church harm, because this, if you take both of those documentaries touch on my past, because I was in junior high, late elementary and junior high. I was in an independent fundamentalist Baptist church, and Jack Hiles, who they talk about, he was a guest speaker often at our church, and he was at the Mother Church in Hammond, Indiana. And, so much of that kind of brought up my past in a gentle way where I wasn't traumatized again by it.
Right.
But it brought some of it up, and we got to process it. And just our eyes are open every time we hear a story from people like that.
Yeah. I also think it kind of softened you to women in the church. You know, speaking of church harm, you know, I just think that it really just opened your eyes, opened some doors, gave you an opportunity to really hear women like maybe you've never heard them before.
Yeah, and especially the incident that happened in the fall.
Here, yeah.
You know, when that incident happened, it was kind of like for the first time I saw, you know, we were pastors for a long time, and we saw people's hurts and so on, but it kind of opened my eye to what the patriarchy does, and it seems like the patriarchy is not dead, that it's continuing on into progressive Christianity and deconstruction circles and things like that.
Right.
So it really, you know, opened my eyes to what women are going through when they say, would you just listen to us?
So is there any one thing like that was kind of like the turning point for you that like made that light switch go off and go, oh man?
Yeah, there was. I was in a big group of progressive Christians, and some of the women I know were in there, and they had felt like this is a safe space. And then when we got to talking about the abuser on stage and stuff like that, and if you listen to the podcast, you know what we're talking about. Yeah. We don't have to call out names and things like that. But I think that just really helped me see it, you know, real vividly.
Yeah.
And then recently, you know, a few weeks ago, just last weekend, we had the Leaning Forward conference where we've made it all about women. Not a women's conference, but all women spoke.
Right.
And we asked them, you know, talk about whatever you want about religious trauma, but then also put a small thing in there to say, have a message to men. And it's really interesting how they all kind of said the same thing. They said, we want you to listen to us. We want you to be quiet when we're talking. Don't interrupt us, you know. And then they talked about the patriarchy, about things like, you know, we still need you. We're not trying to get rid of you, but you need us too. And that's what's been wrong, is you've been excluding us in certain parts, and you're not listening to our stories. Right.
So. And a lot of them brought up how the patriarchy hurts men too. Like it's built and centers around men, but actually that can be very damaging to men as well.
Yeah, that's a little hard to understand because it is a system. You know, the patriarchy is not just men, it's a system that benefits men. So it's made up of men and women.
Right.
But it benefits men, but in the long run, it hurts them. You know, it's like sometimes the things you get, you know, from being in a crooked system benefits you initially, but in the long run, it's going to hurt you too.
Right.
You know, it's not good for anybody.
And something one of the speakers said that kind of resonated with me because, you know, part of my story in the churches that we pastored, part of that story is that, you know, it was the women in the church. And so I know that you try to, you know, spotlight women and things like that, but so much of my church trauma had to do with women in the church. And so one of the speakers, though, you know, really made a good point, and she just said, you know, so many times that those women in the church are actually, for whatever reason, trying to preserve the patriarchy as well. So
yeah, and it's because they're silenced in the church. They can't be on stage. In the first church we pastored, they couldn't be on the board. You know,
I guess I didn't know that.
They weren't allowed to speak. In the second and third churches, the third churches, we designed it where women were a big part of the board. But for the most case, when the women were silenced, they found other ways to, I don't know if it's to get their way or what, but they often caused issues for you.
Right. Well, and in all that, I mean, that was helpful, but there's a part of me that isn't going to let them off the hook, you know? So, yeah.
You still want to call them the B word.
Well,
right.
I think that it's important to, you know, take a look at, you know, women in the church. And if that is part of, you know, the fact that they've been silenced for so long and they're trying to figure out a way around that system, that patriarchal system, to get their voices to be heard, you know, maybe that's what happens when, like you said, when you've been, your voice has been, you know, not allowed basically in the church. Maybe that's what happens is then you don't use it. You don't use your voice properly or for the better good, you know, and your voice becomes the voice of an abuser. It's just interesting.
I liked what one of the speakers said, that there's activism, activists, and what's the other word I'm trying to think of? I'll think of it in a minute. But activists change systems. So you want activism in this area of the patriarchy, but you also want, I still can't think of the word.
Yeah, I don't know. It starts with an A.
But it starts with an A also. But when
people just need to listen to the videos.
Yeah, when you do that, you're reaching out to people. You can't change people. You can change systems, but systems are hard to change.
Is it allyship? No. Oh gosh, sorry.
You're on the right track.
Cut you off because I thought I had the right word.
But when you're trying, you can't. She said you can't. It was Janine. You can't change people, right? But you can change systems. But the patriarchy doesn't want you to change systems. That's when they get uneasy.
Yeah.
But that's still got to be your focus: is how do we affect these systems and change the systems or get rid of the systems? My vote. But you got to keep focusing on people. You know, and like what we do, we hear their stories, we listen to them, we try to amplify their voices, and then some of those will be activists. I almost thought the word, then I lost it again. But
that's all right.
So all of that was real interesting. Those 9 speakers for that conference, including you, we're really trying to keep amplifying the women's voices, and so we're following up with that. We're creating we've got a web page where all the videos can be accessed and their resources. We're also going to make those into podcast episodes for February in 2024. So we want to keep that going.
I like the idea of having not only their videos as a resource for people, but also their resources as resources for people. Because so many times, you know, you go to a conference and first of all, you have to pay to get in, which you didn't have to pay to come to this one. And then you have to pay for the books and the resources and, you know, all the things. And that's hard for so many people. And so I'm glad that we have something that we can put out there, and you know, it's a free resource, and the resources that people are sharing with us, as far as I understand, are all free resources.
Yeah, they you know, take Janine for example. Janine has a resource page on her page, and so we include that underneath her video, kind of like you do on a podcast episode or whatever.
Right.
But it's all there together on one web page, and I hope it'll kind of become a resource for people.
Right. And I mean, some of them do have books. Like Janine does have books that are well worth the money if you want to, you know, purchase those. But yeah, I just love the idea of giving people something that they can access right away and hopefully help them to begin their healing journey.
Yeah, so all of that, we're going to keep going with that.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be talking to a few people. December, which is right now for us.
Right.
December was our Pride Month.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, we had 4 speakers, I believe, in December that...
We're part of the LGBTQ community. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of them was our friend Seth that's written a book called Finally Free.
Mm-hmm.
Pastor Kirk, who lives near us,
Yeah.
that was kind of persecuted by another church down there.
Mm-hmm.
A relative of one of our relatives, Noah.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see him. And then Dr. Miner, I think. Dr. Miner's video hasn't released yet. It's on YouTube, but it hadn't released on the podcast. It's already got several hundred views, quite a few views on, maybe I'm exaggerating, I don't know, but it's gotten some views on YouTube already.
Yeah, so, good.
But we're looking forward to the new year. We're looking forward to all the things we're going to talk about next year. I was going to back up a little bit and talk about this. If anybody's interested, we did a series back at the end of February and then all through March called Things We Don't Understand.
Mm-hmm.
And we just talked to a lot of different people, about things that are different.
Right. That are not like, quote unquote, religious denominations.
Yeah, not just like new theology, progressive theology and things like that. But we talked to people that were mystics and one witch, right? A tarot card creator and reader. Our friend Aaron, who has a lot of insight into the occult and things like that. Maria talked about post-Christian things, and just a lot of real interesting people. Yeah. And we called it Things We Didn't Understand. And I know for some of you, here's what I'm excited about this year, Laura. I'm going to go take that a step further, and that my goal is to read 100 books. So I probably won't be writing as much, but I'm going to read 100 books, about things I don't understand. The first 2 are about yogis, and they've been interesting so far. I'm already into the second book, so I'm getting a head start on my next year. Yeah. But I think it's always good. I was always told that's dangerous.
Right.
Do that. Be careful.
Yeah. Right.
And even now, if I start talking to people about it, they say, well, be careful over there. And
what do you think they're afraid of? Like, I know when we were in the church, it was like, you're going to open the door for Satan and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, do you really think that's what they believe? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's what we've been taught.
Yeah.
Now that if you ask, because back during when I was in high school and college, there was satanic panic, where they thought you play the records backwards and get some kind of satanic message. So they thought you're going to go out there and accidentally, get something bad. Right. Accidentally. It's just going to jump on you or something, or jump into you or whatever. And I think people have believed that for thousands of years, maybe forever. And that hasn't been my experience. All through our deconstruction, especially through the past year, and we've used tarot cards a little bit. We don't do them all the time, and I guess we really don't do them any at all anymore.
Not recently.
Not recently, but sometime every once in a while we look at those. And we've been studying different things and learning from them, gleaning things from them. But, maybe people could point to, well, Karl doesn't go to church anymore. Well, that's right. And I believe that's a good thing. But something hasn't jumped on me. I haven't, gone down the slippery slope into misery and
no, not
demon
at all.
Possession or something.
I mean, and I think about that, and like, I remember that when we were in the church, and our kids were growing up and stuff like that, and they would have views that differed because they were more compassionate, apparently, than we were as Christians, which is very true. I don't say that sarcastically. I mean that. But I remember thinking, oh, if they don't go to church, I'm going to worry about their salvation, or if they believe, that, people should just love who they love, well, maybe if they would just read their Bible more. I mean, these were actual thoughts that I would have, and they were fear-based. So I guess in a way I can see that, but I agree with you. There's never been a time where I feel like I have become possessed by some demonic entity because I'm not going to church, or, I don't really know or give much thought to, what I think about God and believe about God and things like that. So,
and I'd have to say that trigger was created by Christianity, by religion. It's created within there to when that, that's a fear. So when you feel something different, or when you, do something you haven't ever done before, you're naturally afraid, and they've made you more afraid, and it becomes a trigger for you. And so someone very well could walk into a tarot store, like we've been into a spirit store or whatever that has sage and things like that that you're not used to seeing. And when you see that, maybe it does make you feel a little different. But I think when you're open, when you approach it somewhat logically, you approach it inquisitively, there's nothing to be afraid of.
Right. I think it's really strange. Like, when I just kind of thought about this before we started recording, but like when we first started deconstructing, I mean, really, because I always talk about how, even when we were inside the church, emotionally, I was separating myself from the church. I was there in body only. But, one of the things that I think is interesting, I remember saying when I first was like, well, I don't know what I believe anymore about God. I might just, if I die tonight, I'll probably just go to hell. And honestly, that did not scare me. There was almost like this, I mean, if that's the God I've been worshiping for all this time, then, I don't know. I can't, there's nothing I can do about it. But it wasn't a fear. It was just like, oh, well, I feel like I probably just wasn't buying it anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I didn't know how to, really articulate that, I guess. Yeah. Those, 4 or 5 years ago when everything was starting to fall down around me.
I think we didn't have any regulating skills at all when we were in Christianity.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean,
I will agree with you, but I want to know what exactly you mean.
Yeah, I don't think we were ever taught. I was thinking the other day, one of the best things we've learned when people say, "What are your practices? What have you learned out in the desert?" One of the biggest things for me, I think, is we've learned to breathe. I can literally hear you walking through the house sometime, just breathing, just regulating yourself. Yeah. Right? We were never given those skills within Christianity.
That's true.
Christianity was praying that something else would regulate us.
Or just push it down.
Or push it down. Yeah. Or
just ignore it. Don't think of it. Yeah.
Get some scriptures and bypass it.
Oh, God.
But we weren't taught to regulate, and
we weren't, and in order to regulate, you have to listen to your body. So,
definitely
that kind of,
weren't doing that.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
So there's so much to talk about. There's so many even podcast episodes to talk about. But one of the things that happened after that theology beer camp incident was that I just kind of began to question theology in general. I realized that a lot of these people, even out here in the desert in progressive circles, the cult leaders still are theologians,
Yeah.
And so if theology basically is trying to understand God, I don't have a problem with that. But, it kind of becomes, and it has always been, then, well, these guys are raised up, they're elevated. And really I asked the question through several months of contemplation, just what has theology accomplished in 1,500 years? After Christ, then Constantine set up the church with the elevated platform and all that stuff, and that's when the Bible kind of got organized and all that stuff. But in 1,500 years, has it really accomplished anything? We still, and then we go through the Reformation 500 years ago, where Luther, separates from the Catholic Church. Then we have 40,000 denominations. We haven't come together. We don't understand it better. It seems like all we're doing with theology is fixing the mistakes of former theologians. It's just that constant game where someone comes up with a new idea, they write a book, they're famous for a little while, and the next person comes along that writes a book, and all of those people are longing to be that one person on stage. And every one person on stage probably represents tens of thousands of people wanting to be up there or just looking for someone to worship. I just don't know really that theology has accomplished much, especially when everybody says, well, what we really need to do is just love our neighbor. I'm like, well, we settled that a long time ago. We know what that means.
Right.
We don't do it now, but that's, the simplicity of it. And we get so much more understanding of, from archaeology and things like that and proof and all of this. And has it really got us any further,
So So say again what theology is.
Well, to me it would be just trying to understand God.
Okay, so how do you do that without getting to the point where we are right now, where everybody's just, they think they have the right answer?
I think it's, maybe it's in the phraseology. I was having a discussion with someone today that and if you can say, I think, I believe this, and I think my son JD taught me that, but to say, well, this is...
He's my son too, just
I know.
So the listeners know.
I was saying that to them. So I think, I believe, or what I'm coming to understand, what I'm, but we're always kind of, it seems like being pushed or forced into all joining together and believing the same thing.
Or is it just, that, I mean, I agree with that, but also I just think some people just think they're right and demand that other people believe that they're right and the way that they think is right.
Right. At first, it's an uncomfortable position, and everybody that's come out of Christianity that's deconstructed knows that, but they forget that it's a really uncomfortable place to believe something that 9 out of 10 of your family members don't believe.
Yeah.
Or your old church, none of them are there. They're way back behind this understanding.
Right.
And so it's uncomfortable, so we want everybody to come on board, believe the same thing, then we'll get something accomplished. I don't know what we're going to accomplish by doing that, but, we got to speak at the Wild Goose this year, and we had some of those same feelings coming out of that. I mean, it's a fine conference, I guess, and has some diversity in certain areas, and not in others.
Not in others, for sure.
But, kind of got that impression. We're just, even though we kind of accept some diversity and we're accepting of some views, but just like conservative Christianity, we don't allow others and we don't consider others. So I think it's all right for me to be on a quest to try to understand what the yogis believed. It's all right for me to try to understand what it says in the Egyptian Book of the Dead and some things like that. I want to understand more about all these things. And so far, in 7 years, it's done nothing but benefit me.
Right.
The only thing that's hurt me in the desert, and I don't even know if we should get into this right now, but the only thing that's hurt me is people.
Yeah.
You know, and some of that I admit is my fault. That I have certain tendencies and ways about me that, you know, it's a little harder, you know, because I don't put up with any bullshit. I don't, you know, I'm not going to anymore. I don't just want to be liked. You know, I want to be respected, and so, you know, there's certain roads I'm not going to go down, and that's my part. But, you know, people have also dragged the DNA of evangelical Christianity out into the desert and out into progressive circles and deconstruction circles. And here's what but again, it's going back to theologians. I'm sorry for rambling on, but the problem is mostly with theologians. They've deconstructed, they've changed their beliefs, but they haven't ever healed.
Yeah.
Or they've healed some. You know, they haven't ever stopped being a leader. They almost instantly, like we've kind of been tempted to do too, is they've almost just kind of went back into teaching, writing books, organizing groups, and things like that, being a pastor, being a leader, instead of stopping completely and healing.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I think that was part of our story when we first deconstructed, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we lead a couple of things here. You know, we host the podcast. I write a blog, and you sometimes contribute to that. We've written books. Right. But I think that's the thing you really got to sort out. You got to sort out, you know, that thing in your head, you know, that says, now I've got to lead, you know, and
I've got the answer now.
Yeah, but you may have, you know, and you may be able to gather some people together, but if you're not well, you're going to hurt people.
Yeah, and the thing is too is that you may have what works for you, but I don't know that it's my job to convince everybody else to believe what I believe. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, it's just, I've been learning a lot. I noticed one, this lady, I won't mention her name, but she's a theologian also, but she's also a mystic. And she's said, you know what, some of us are coming to the same conclusions. We're coming to the same conclusions intuitively. You know, we've always said one of the best things to do is go inside.
Right.
So when you go inside, your intuition, you learn to develop it over time. If you're healing and all that, you get better. And you come to that conclusion. Well, this other person, you know, is approaching it somewhat differently, but intuitively comes to some of the same conclusions. And I think that's the way we need to get there. But we get it all mixed up in, you know, I want to be famous.
Yeah.
I want to have a big group. I want to sell a lot of books and so on. It's, you know, that's part of life and part of what happens. But one of the things we really need to do is stop and get better.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Then I think we learn the lessons like the women at our Leaning Forward conference are trying to teach us. Just, you know, listen to women, don't interrupt women, include them, amplify their voices. I think that's a lot of it. Then we got to get the other half of the population in, you know, which also includes minorities, gay,
sure.
trans people, and everything like that.
Yeah. So, what is, like, what's going on in our lives right now? I mean, I guess I should ask you that question. So what's going on for you right now? I mean, you kind of talked about that. You talked about how, you're planning on doing more reading in the coming year and learning more about things maybe that you don't understand. But
one of the things I've been doing kind of almost silently is I haven't written.
Let me help you. I'm a third grade teacher.
Wrote, have written.
Oh boy.
I haven't written about.
This is my life all day. I could tell you so many stories about improper uses of English, and not that I'm perfect, but sometimes some of my third graders, I'm just like,
your third graders.
I'm just like, let's rephrase that.
I'm like a third grader.
Yeah, go ahead. Anyway.
Yeah. So, but for the past, is it a year and a half? It's almost 2 years.
Since your stroke?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, almost 2 years, because January 21st would be 2 years, 2024.
I've been learning, to deal with that. And I have talked to a couple of people, and I've said, there's parts of that are extremely discouraging, depressing. The things I can't do anymore. And I can focus on those. I certainly want to deal with that. But also then, what can I do? What's the best thing for me to do? And then learning to cope, learning to, trying to get better, trying to walk better and use my hand better and so on. But that's been a whole journey. Yeah. In and of itself, and it helps me to have a routine and something I can do every day and things like that.
Right.
But just, so much of my story was being a doer, from birth. That's what I was taught, and that's what I did for 40 years. So I think that's been a big thing for me. Yeah. What about you?
Oh, man, you always ask me that. What about you? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I guess I don't have, I sound boring. Because you ask me questions like that, like, well, what are your practices on podcasts and things like that? And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, one of your things to say is just be who you are. Like, just be present. Like, I feel like that's just what I want to be doing. And so I guess I don't give a lot of thought to so many of the things that you think about, which is, it's good though. I mean, and I think especially at this conference, this Leading Forward conference, I think that so many of the women speakers really just appreciated, you having their back and you giving them a place to, a way to amplify their voices. But I don't have anything like that. And I'm not that's not a, feel sorry for me kind of thing. It's just that's when I'm most happy, I think, is when I don't have to worry about all the crap that we used to have to worry about inside the church. It's just, to me, it feels more freeing. And I want to, just, like you said, just continue to amplify the voices that have been in the margins for so long. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess that's just kind of where I'm at. It's not as, I don't feel like it's as grandiose as what you're trying to do. Yeah. But, I do think we complement each other, Yeah,
I think I've probably put 100 hours into that conference and making videos and all that stuff. But the best thing was just to give myself permission to just be there, and to let the women teach and have do their thing and highlight them and stay in the background and so on. And there was a really kind of warm moment at the end where some of the speakers that were still left that had kind of been hanging around for the part of the day, and they just kind of shared, just kind of like breaking bread, It wasn't very long, But I think those are the kind of things that you tend to long for, time with your grandchildren.
Yeah.
Holding hands at night,
Yeah.
for bed. We shouldn't talk about our bed, right?
That's okay. Oh, there's nothing wrong with it. Now that sounds like, yeah. No sex shaming. Although we're not talking about sex. Okay, so now I've gone off the deep end. But yeah, so like at night, I mean, I just like to like be close and know that you're there, kind of thing. Yeah.
I do think that for both of us, we have hot buttons. There's things we really care about.
Mm-hmm.
We want. One of the speakers did a full story, real vulnerable story
Mm-hmm.
about purity culture,
right,
and things like that. And some of those issues are really hot buttons for you.
Yeah.
And so on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I don't know, but it's been a good year. It's been a full year. It's been a good year. It's weird because I can't really say like I have any definite plans, like, where do you see, the podcast or the Desert Sanctuary in 5 years? Like, I'm just, happy to be on the ride, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Being able to listen to people's stories and hold space for them. And I think that's one thing that is really important, and that's really lacking, is just being that person, or having a person that will like listen, and like we talk about in school, that whole body listening, where you're not like jumping in and trying to fix anything, but you're just like holding space for their story, and you're believing it even if it's not part of your story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I hope that we can always bring to the table. Yeah. With the Desert Sanctuary.
Yeah. We promise, I don't know how to express or explain this, but former friend of mine, just so.
Oh my gosh, we're so cryptic, right?
I don't want to out anybody. Or
I don't either.
But
I don't either.
There was a time when I really wanted just to interview big speakers,
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what we're doing anymore. I think, what we're doing now is, finding what's interesting to us and we think might be interesting to someone else, and letting that person tell their story. And what the thing is, what we've gained, we could probably write a book. We probably have enough information, even written down right now, to write a book about that, about what we learned in the desert from the stories. It seems like when we hear those stories, especially when we listen to a lot of them and hear the commonality and the things that ring out to us in each one of those, that it's really the people that we wouldn't have expected, that sheds light on us and teaches us, and we're blessed by those stories. And I just used a religious word.
You just used the B word, man.
Well, we're enriched. We're enlightened. We're lifted up. No, that's the religious too. I can't help it.
I know. It's just part of your DNA, right?
Mm-hmm. But
it's sad that some of those words have been, I think, weaponized. I mean,
yeah.
Maybe someday we can take them back and they don't have all the baggage that we've attached to them.
Yeah. But like I said, we've already kind of started booking some stuff for 2024. We're going to turn some the speeches into podcast episodes.
Yeah.
And I think you might enjoy those that way.
I think so too.
Anyway, because people like to listen to stuff going down the road.
That's how I am.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, we go to St. Joe to eat and do that all the time.
Put on a podcast.
So what are you looking forward to this year? What do you want to do?
I mean, I think I always look forward to just, doing life together, really, you know. You brought up the stroke, and I mean, I still remember it was the day after your stroke at your bedside saying, I just want to grow old together, and I just want to do life together. And I don't, one of the things I don't want is that this can sometimes be really heavy work, and I just don't want it to have a negative effect on our health or, those kinds of things. And so I think it's good that we always have that in the forefront and just make sure that when it's important that we take a break if we need to and talk about other things. Because like our youngest daughter said, "Well, you guys think about religion way more than I do." I just thought she's not wrong. So, but I think the reason that we think about it so much is because we know how much damage can be done in the name of religion. And we don't want to see people continuing to be hurt and harmed, wounded by the church.
Yeah, so to tie that back in, I remember the word was advocates.
Wow, so nice.
So to tie that back in, there's a part of us that wants to be activists. I've walked for Black Lives Matter. We went to a Black Lives Matter rally. We get notifications about women's group stuff, activism type of stuff.
Our plan is in 2024 to go to Pride Parade. I'm so excited about that with our daughter and granddaughters, and it's going to be great.
Now I want to go to. This weekend there's a protest at Jack Hyles Church in Hammond, Indiana, and part of me wants to go to that and be an activist. Those things are important, and we want to support those things and do what we can. Sometimes that's supporting other people that are changing the systems. But we definitely want to be advocates. Yeah. And advocates don't change people. Advocates, in essence, love people, And we want to be here to hear their stories. I think that's one of our big deals, is hear their stories out here in the desert away from organized religion and listen to them, process with them, do what we can to help them. Many times they help us.
Oh, for sure.
And they teach us and so on. So we want to be advocates for the LGBTQ community, for African Americans, for minorities, for all the things, those that were abused and abuse survivors, things like that. So we're definitely focusing right now the most attention on abuse survivors. It's so big, and so many people, so many stories that we want to keep doing that. I think through the year, and then like you've alluded to, I still can't believe that's still my motto: to be where you are, be who you are, the presence and authenticity. We want to be real. Several of our, we still know lots of people that don't know who they are. Right. And you can see them struggling. You can't tell them. Right. But until you're authentic, until you know who you are, you don't know what you're supposed to do. Like Janine was talking about, you don't have a purpose. Your purpose is in your story. Right. But you've got to discover who you are. Right. And then be where you are. Be present. And you talked about that earlier. I just want to be present. I want to be with my grandkids and be at the conference when I'm at the conference and not at the conference when I'm not at the conference. Right. And be present where I am. So I think those things still apply for 2024.
I agree.
There's political things that are going to happen. There's politicians that might go to jail and things like that. But I don't think it's going to benefit us too much to worry about that. Yeah. I think we can keep doing what we're doing. And I think that's the other thing that you've talked to me a lot about is let's just do our thing. Right. Let's do our thing. Yep. And
let's be authentically who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, yeah, I don't want to be. I think we did that for too many years. I think we were trying
fit in.
to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and Brene Brown says it best. She's like, you have to belong to yourself first.
Mm-hmm. And then you belong everywhere.
That's right.
Yeah, it's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to sign off.
All right.
And 300 episodes in the can. That's exciting to me.
That is. It's more than I have on my other podcast. I don't even think we've hit 100. Yeah, that's okay. That's a totally different podcast.
Sometimes I wonder if I ever had that many conversations in 20 years of ministry with people.
No. I can tell you right now, no.
Not really at all.
No.
There's occasionally...
I don't know that we ever connected to that many people
Yeah.
in the 20 years of ministry.
Yeah. Occasionally we'd have a real deep conversation with somebody, but
I think
not that often.
Yeah, and I know we were going to sign off, but I also think that there was a time, I just think that being harmed by people causes you to not want to establish those kind of relationships with people.
Mm-hmm.
That was me. I'll speak for myself.
Yeah.
So it's really just been probably within the last couple years, and hearing the stories of other people and being able to go, I hear your story. I can 100% feel your story. That's part of my story too. Has really helped me to kind of heal that part of me that wanted to just shut everybody out.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everybody out there, thanks for tuning in, and we hope 2024 is a good year for you. That whatever you do, that you're authentic and present while you're doing it, and that you'll be who you are, be where you are, and be at peace.
Thank you for joining us today on the Desert Sanctuary podcast.
Remember, all who wander in the desert are not lost.
We believe all of our stories are sacred.
We are always here if you need someone to hear your story.
Check out our blog on Pathos and also our YouTube channel.
And stay tuned for our Leaning Forward conference.
Remember, we love you.
And be at peace.